I've actually never held a firearm in my hand in my entire life, but I've sat in jail for one. My mom was screaming, like hysterically freaking out that there was this gun in my trunk. I take the gun. I take it to someone I know. I asked them to hold on to it. I left it there. He said, if you don't tell us where the gun is, we're just going to send officers out everywhere, and we're going to search his house, and we're going to go to his children's mother's houses, and we're going to search everybody's house. And what do you think they're going to do to you when you get out of jail? If you have the gun, you have the gun, and that's all that really matters.
The number of people that come to my office that are like, I don't own the gun, it's not mine. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but the law doesn't care about ownership. No. Possession is only knowledge and control.
Any type of person can find themselves wrapped up in a situation that they don't know how to navigate and can end up a criminal.
Welcome back to another episode of Who Judges the Judge, the podcast intended to make you question the way you judge the world around you. And today's guest, I'm so excited to interview you. We've been talking about this for so long. Kristen Markoff, the owner of Markoff Legal Services, distinguished paralegal, formerly accused, acquitted. You've rebuilt your whole life many times over.
Yes.
I'm so excited to talk to you. As you know, one of the sort of key features or themes that I often run through my podcast is how the struggles that we have overcome in life are catalysts to our success. And I really think that there's so many jump offs for that in your story. And I'm really so honored to have you here, prepared to open up. I know that this is your first sort of public speaking engagement.
Yes, it is.
Although hopefully it feels like just a private conversation.
Yes.
As much as I expect that there will be many, many people who will watch this and learn from this and hopefully benefit from your story. It's really just you and I having a chat right now. So
yes. And I'm so happy to be here. I've definitely wanted to share my story for a while. But having someone like you to share it with definitely makes it a lot easier and will make it a lot more comfortable for me, I'm sure.
I love that. I love that. I mean, let's start with basics. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Like, sort of what area? No one's asking for specific addresses, but, are you originally from Toronto? Did you grow up, in and around the Toronto area? Tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
I'm from Brampton, born and raised in Brampton. My parents were married together. I have an older brother. He was big in the athletic world. He played rep baseball, rep hockey. So we were always kind of on the move during my younger years, going from tournament to tournament, driving to the U.S. and things like that. My dad coached rep baseball, so he was really well known in the community and whatnot. I grew up there. My parents split up when I was around 12 or 13.
Life before then was like normal?
So it was normal, but
whatever
not,
normal means?
Yeah, not normal. So I dealt with trauma from a really young age.
Okay.
I was sexually assaulted as a child by a very, very close friend of mine's father. And it was a family friend as well. So they were really close friends with my parents. And
did you disclose when it was happening?
So not until the end. So it happened over a long period of time. It was not something that just happened once. It was happening on a regular basis. Probably from around in between 5 to 7 it started. And then when it was discovered I think it was about 11 or 12 when my parents found out, and they contacted the police. The person was charged. I can't really get into too much details about that, but he pled guilty to one count of one time it happening.
Wow.
I think he did like 28 days in jail because this was back in the 90s that this happened, right? So it wasn't really...
It's not that much better these days.
Yeah, and for him pleading guilty to only one time made it so that he only had to go on the registry, I think, for 3 years, and then he could come off and whatnot. So, yeah, that was there, right? But other than
Did you have your parents' support as you were going through that process? Like when you went to the police, when you were going through the court process? Because I don't deal with sex assault cases. As you know, it's not ever been a part of my practice, but obviously very familiar because it's still an area of the law that impacts other areas of the law and some of the decisions. And, sometimes we see parents that are not supportive and don't believe their child, especially when it's a family friend or someone close to the family. And then other families, it's obviously the exact opposite, and they come together and do everything they can to support the child.
Yes. So my parents definitely supported me. But again, it was back in the 90s. So it was something that I want to say is a lot different than nowadays. Like they did support me, but it also was a time where you didn't really talk about a lot, right? Like they definitely put me into counseling and stuff like that, but we didn't really talk about it a lot as a family. It was my choice to contact the police. They asked me if I wanted that to happen. And then we went ahead and did it. I definitely had the support of my parents, but again, it wasn't really something that we talked about a lot. I don't remember a lot of, the conversations that happened with me and my parents about it. It was a long time ago, but also I think I kind of just pushed everything out from that time. Even with the police, I remember speaking to someone. I don't know if it was a police officer or like a social worker, but I remember being super scared. I didn't get a comfortable feeling from them. They were very cold. I didn't even really want to talk to them and tell them what had happened, like all of the details, because it was very, I feel like nowadays it would be a lot different if that happened and they were interviewing a child. Again, I don't deal with that kind of law either, so I don't know how it happens. But
I think there's a lot of like accommodations now that are made. I think that there's sort of the rooms, like the setup of the rooms, from what I understand, are like made to make children more comfortable. The police, I mean, as sexual assault in general, especially childhood sexual assault, is something that I believe the police approach from a very different perspective now. There's far more compassion for the victims than there used to be back then. I mean, from what I understand, again, not my area of law, but I often get contacted by victims of various assaults to ask just for my opinion on how to navigate the system. So from what I understand, it's a far more compassionate approach these days than it would have been back in the 90s.
Yeah.
A lot of women who have experienced, especially childhood trauma, but sexual assault even into their early teens, turn to addiction, turn to violence, often drop out of school. There's sort of these quote unquote behavioral issues that are really just coping mechanisms and trying to overcome some of the stress and trauma that they've experienced. Did any of that resonate with you? Like, how do you go through high school? Or you talk to us a little bit about what that foundation looks like?
So definitely through high school, I started like smoking cigarettes really, really young, smoking marijuana, all the time, drinking, partying. I didn't struggle with addiction at that point in time on an everyday basis. But I would party a lot. Like I would go out on the weekends always. And if there was anything that was around, I was pretty much up for trying, there was nothing that we really said no to, but it was more like kind of party drugs at that point in time. I went back to an alternative education high school where I could get my credits a little bit faster.
Right.
And I took grade 12 law there. And that's when I just fell in love with law. And I decided, okay, I really want to go into law. I thought, okay, let me go to college. I'll take a paralegal course. And then when I graduate, I'll apply to university and I'll do the whole university thing. But what ended up happening was I had taken out a student loan for college and I started working right away to try and pay that off. And I wanted to get my license so that even while I was in university, I could still do things, right? And make a little bit of money.
Right.
And I started working first for a corporate landlord. And then I left there and worked for a private paralegal firm that did landlord and tenant. And it was the head paralegal and two of us, me and one other girl, and he made a lot of money. Like he was making 6 figures, no problem, every year. So in my mind, I was like, why am I going to go back to school for another 6 years, get huge student loan and like all this schooling, and I could just do what I'm doing right now and build myself up to hopefully have the same type of business one day.
So now you get your paralegal degree.
Yes.
Are you working at that same firm where you were working under that one senior paralegal who seemed to be doing really well and inspired you to maintain, your position as a paralegal?
So I wasn't there yet.
Okay.
Right when I got licensed, I had been at a law firm. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was at the immigration law firm before that. And I remember the lawyer there being like, what benefit would you be to me if you were licensed? Because there's nothing in immigration that you can do as a paralegal, right? We're not, and they were immigration, they did immigration appeals. So even the little things at that time that we were able to assist with, because we didn't get pushed out of that right away, he didn't do those types of things. So I remember him saying that to me, and then I ended up getting licensed. So I looked for a job as a licensed paralegal somewhere, and I found a job at a corporate landlord downtown Toronto.
Right.
I worked there for a bit. I ended up quitting there, and immediately I left and I started to look in the same field, and I found another paralegal who worked on his own, who took me in, so to speak. And yeah, so from there, what ended up happening was he also allowed me to get my own clients. And then I just had to pay 20% of whatever I billed out for using the office, and I would run those files on my own. I started getting so many files and I was living in Brampton still, that it didn't even make sense to me to pay to drive to Toronto to use the office when all my clients too were mostly based in Brampton. So the court was in Brampton that I was going to, and things along those lines. So I ended up leaving there and saying, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and see if I can go out on my own and see if I can make it. My friend who was working there at the other paralegal firm, she had also left. So it was just me. And it wasn't going well there. So I figured, you know what, let me just branch off on my own. And yeah, I've been doing it since 2010. I got licensed in 2009, 2010. I opened up my own business, and I've been doing that ever since.
And it's still running.
It's still running.
15 years and counting.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And in the middle of this, you end up facing the most serious of criminal charges, and certainly more serious than anything you had dealt with in your early 20s.
Yes, definitely.
Which is how we meet. You
Yes.
ended up hiring my cousin, Leora Shemesh, to defend you. As you know, me and her practice in the same office and often chat about our cases, especially the ones that really touch us and move us. And yours for her was like huge, like devastating.
Leora is, I can't even tell you. It's like makes me emotional even to think about it. Like Leora literally saved my life. Like if it wasn't for her, I cannot tell you where I would be today. I honestly, I can't. I had people who believed in me when I was going through my court trials, but everybody didn't believe that I would be acquitted, right? They didn't believe that I could make it, win, essentially. A lot of people wanted me to take a plea bargain and just kind of throw it all away, so to speak. But Leora was the only person who really believed in me and looked at my case from like a very fresh perspective without any prejudgments, and looked for ways that I could be acquitted. So I actually had 3 lawyers before I had Leora. Every single one of them was just like, no, you're going to have to take a plea. Like, you have no shot here. Once I hired Leora, I found out there was actually a whole agreed upon facts that were not agreed upon from me, but my lawyer had agreed upon them at a JPT. Like, just huge. Because,
like, you had a lawyer that organized the plea behind your back?
Well, during the JPT, they organized, so we were still going to go to trial, but you know how you can have the agreed upon facts ahead of time, so you don't have to try those certain facts. So they had this they had agreed upon these certain facts at the JPT, and
he didn't get your instructions on whether or
no,
not you
not at
agreed.
all, because none of the things that
Wow.
he agreed upon were true, right? And so
And you were facing gun charges.
gun
This
charges,
wasn't.
and the thing is I think a lot of the lawyers looked at me and they judged me because of who my boyfriend was at the time, my ex-boyfriend.
And who was that? Like, for people listening that don't know anything about your story.
So honestly, he's not even anybody. He's nobody. But he was a very big criminal at the time,
Okay.
right? He just was always getting arrested for fraud, for assault, for drugs, for guns. He had been arrested for guns before. Things
And
along those lines.
dating this guy while you are running your own paralegal service.
Yes.
How does that happen?
Okay.
How do you go from, having overcome trauma, or at least found a way to manage and cope with it in a way that still lets you live life in, I'd say a semi-functional capacity, right? You're still doing drugs, you're getting arrested in the background. So, you've obviously got this sort of troubled past that's following you, but nonetheless, you finish high school, you go to college, you become a paralegal, you get licensed by the Law Society. These are huge accomplishments, especially given what you're overcoming. And so how do you end up in a relationship with someone who is like entrenched in criminal subculture?
Okay. So when I was growing up, when my parents split up, and me and I lived with my mom, my brother lived with my dad. The house where me and my mom lived, we lived in a very, like middle class to higher class neighborhood of predominantly white people. But there, right along the edge of this neighborhood was a strip of townhouse complexes, right? Which was community housing and things along those lines. So my backyard backed onto those townhouses. And when my parents split up and I was just starting high school and things like that, we would smoke weed. So a lot of my friends would hop over my fence to go into the townhouses to go and buy weed, right? And then I became friends with a lot of people who lived in there. My friend, her boyfriend was friends with this guy. I met him when I was, I think, 15 years old. And he had just moved from Toronto. I didn't really know a lot about him. And we started dating back then, right? But it was like high school dating, not anything serious. Like I don't even have we can't even hang out except, at the park or something, right? Like it wasn't anything that serious. So I don't think I really got to know him that well. Like I knew he was doing things that were illegal, but I mean, I was smoking weed back then and doing some things that were illegal too. So I never thought it was something like drugs or like guns or, things like that. So we dated on and off, and then we lost contact probably somewhere around 18, I want to say. And then when my business took off, I moved out of my house, my mom's house, and I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, who wasn't this guy. And we were together for a while. We lived together for a while. And then he left one day, like just packed up all his stuff and left. We had argued about something. He was gone. And time went past. I think a week or so had gone past and nothing. I started to get like lonely, right? And then I kind of turned back to the things that I knew from when I was younger to, get attention, fill those voids or whatnot. And I reached out to a friend who I knew had contact with my ex. And I said, like, give him my number, tell him to call me. And he called me and I saw him that night. We started talking again. We started seeing each other. And I didn't realize how much trouble he was into at that point in time. I knew he was into some trouble and had been for some time. But I also knew that he grew up very, with no support, like no real father figure around, no real parental figure to show you like where to go or whatnot. He grew up like on the streets, and that's how he was raised. So But I knew him as more than just that. Like, I didn't see him as just that, but as the actual person he was, because, you know, we all are somebody before we go through those traumas and before they mold us into the person we end up becoming, right? So I think I really saw who he was as a person and not just the trouble that he got into. And I was really able to connect with him on that level. And I always thought to myself, you know, if I have had somebody like that when I was going through my struggles who really supported me and helped me, maybe things would have been a lot easier for me and I wouldn't have gone through as many struggles as I went through. So I really wanted to be there for him and to support him because he didn't want to live that life, or at least that's what I had thought, right? In the beginning, when we first started dating again, I didn't realize that he was into drugs the way that he was. It wasn't until later on that I found out that he was into opiates.
Okay.
I also had a very close friend at the time who was into opiates. So I related on that level with him as well. And I think, you know, as much as at the time I wasn't thinking, oh, I want to save this person. Essentially, that's what I was doing is I thought that, you know, I could save him if I could be there for him, you know, and we could build this great life because look, I've built this business. If he can find his passion and build his business, like we could be like a powerhouse couple, right? But a legal powerhouse couple.
That's fair. And he was telling you that he wanted to make these changes that you wanted to help him with.
Yes,
like you weren't
wanted to
taking
make
on
these
like a passion project that you thought you could change him.
No.
But just be like a solid source of support that could help encourage him to make the changes he wanted to make.
Exactly. And even at this time, I also had a job as well. During this time, I can't remember exactly when, but I got a job working with a company who did audits for the Toronto Star.
And this is separate and apart from your paralegal business?
This is separate and apart from my paralegal business. Okay. So we would work at like 4:30 to 5 o'clock in the morning. We would start work.
Wow.
And we would get a list of houses and we would drive around to see if the newspaper had been delivered properly. Essentially, take a picture and make a little note on the spreadsheet and that's it. Okay. But it was perfect because this job would start around 4:35 and it would run until like the latest would be 8 o'clock. And then I could still go to court. I could still do everything else. And I would have that steady income though, as opposed to just always relying on clients and when they were going to pay and when I would have enough clients for whatever. This gave me a little bit more of a steady income.
About hustle.
Yes. So
seriously, like, do you know how many lawyers I know that don't hustle and just wait for the clients to like come knocking and they're obviously not.
No, you can't always, right?
No.
Because and there's times where you have so much and then there's times where you get like a drought and it's nothing, right? So I needed something and he would come with me and he would work. Like it wasn't like he just came and sat in the car and was sleeping the entire time. He would come, he would work. And he, you know, I could see that in him that he wanted more from life than what he was living. So we were together and then it wasn't until a little bit later on that I realized about the drugs and the opiates.
Do you relapse with him or you stay strong?
So at first I'm clean. I'm not doing drugs. I mean, I still smoked weed, right? That was just a thing that I did. And
weed's legal. No one judges you, I promise.
Right? And so I smoked weed. He did that. And I drank, you know, here and there, whatnot. And it wasn't until the abuse started that I then relapsed and started using opiates as well.
How long is it before he starts becoming abusive?
So I want to say it's probably about maybe 6 months.
Okay.
6 months or a year.
So
and we're living together. So it went really quickly because I already knew him. We had dated before and whatnot. I was living on my own at the time. He was living at his mom's house. So he was always at my house, right? He basically just moved in with me. And then it wasn't until probably about 6 months to a year later that the abuse happened.
So it happens once. Mm-hmm. How come you don't kick him out?
Honestly, I can't tell you why. I'm not 100% sure why.
Because a lot of people don't understand that mentality. And it's something that I encounter a lot as a defense lawyer. It's part of our training is to ask that question. Mm-hmm. I also do a lot of volunteer and charity work with various organizations that help victims of violence, especially in the domestic context. Just yesterday, I was at an event for an organization called EVE, or End Violence Everywhere, that aims to bring awareness and actually, petition for legislative changes in order to help increase the protection around victims. And, one of the sort of resounding questions for people who've never experienced that is like, why do you stay? And so there's this sort of belief, and it's a false belief, but there's a belief that when someone is victimized, they should just automatically leave. But how does your history feed into the sort of choices that you make as an adult who's very accomplished by that point, right? Like you're a paralegal, you own your own business, you have your own home, like you're in a good spot. How does that happen?
So it wasn't until later on, and it's funny that you said it like that, because I remember when I did my internship downtown Toronto at First Canadian Place, and I took the go TTC, not the GO train. What's that called? The subway. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, the subway. It's been so long. So I took the subway, and I remember seeing a domestic violence at that time. So this was only, maybe a year or two before this abusive relationship started. I remember standing there, seeing a sign for a helpline for abused women. And I remember thinking in my head, that could never be me. Like, I could never have that happen to me, because as soon as somebody put their hands on me, like, I would call the police, I would call my dad, I would call my brother. Like, I was notorious in high school for calling my brother. Like, if you were a guy and you looked at me wrong, like, right. I was calling my brother. And my brother was somebody who was going to come and beat you up,
right.
And so it was like, yeah. I was like, there's just no way. And not like in a way of like judging people, but just thinking like that could never be me. I could never see that happening to me. And then fast forward to it's not even 2 years later and it's happening to me. And I think at the time, I didn't want to believe it was happening to me, Then when it got worse, because the first time wasn't that bad, so to speak. Like,
what's not that bad?
So I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember now whether he kicked me or hit me. But I remember I ended up probably having like a cracked rib or something like that.
And that to you is not bad. Like in that,
it
at that time, it was like,
right? I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. No, exactly. But that's exactly how it is. You get programmed to think, well, no, that wasn't that bad. No, it definitely was bad. But compared to the other things that ended up happening, it wasn't that bad at that time. So that had happened. And then that's why I ended up taking the opiates, was because he didn't want me to go to the hospital or to the doctor. And I was in a lot of pain. So he's like, well, why don't you just take this and then see how it goes? So I took it and I felt better. I think it was a Percocet.
Okay.
Yeah, I took it. I felt better. And then even then, I didn't just start using right away. It wasn't until a little bit later. And he would always be using the money that we had to buy drugs. And I remember just getting really frustrated and being like, well, if you're going to do drugs, I want to do drugs too then. It's my money too. So give me some. Let me try it. Let's see what this is like, And it's so stupid now thinking back, but like that's how easily it was for me to just go right back down into,
how long are you sort of in that routine before you get charged for being in possession of his gun?
Okay, so not long. It started to, once it started to spiral, it spiraled very, very, very quickly. So the first time he abused me, then it would have been a couple of months, but then it did become very persistent and on a regular basis. So the drug use becomes very persistent and on a regular basis as well. And I want to say it's like within a year, I end up getting arrested. I went through withdrawals a few times. Like I had tried to stop doing the drugs and had gone through withdrawals a few times. My family knew what was going on. They were supportive of it. So I had just been home going through withdrawal for a while, probably over a week or so. And my mom had supported me through that. I felt better. I got up, I was leaving, and I went to go see him. I can't remember why, but he was guilting me into bringing him something or something and so I went. I ended up staying out for the day, I think overnight, and coming back the next day. And my mom was just not happy at all. So at first she kicks me out, tells me, get my stuff and leave. But then when I tell her, okay, I will leave, and she sees me actually leaving, I think now she's like, oh shit, I didn't actually want you to go because you're going to go with him.
Right.
And my family was very scared at this point that, I was going to end up dying. Like, I was very skinny. I'm already a thin person, and I was thin back then. But after I would withdraw, I would drop down to like 100 pounds. I'd be like skin and bones, right? Because when I withdraw, I would throw up really, really bad for days on end. Wouldn't be able to eat or drink anything. So
did they also know how abusive he was?
They didn't. They knew a little bit, but not how bad it was. If that.
Yeah. So their main concern was with the drugs.
It was with the drugs, also with the abuse as well. They were very, very concerned. So I started packing up my stuff, putting it into my car so that I could leave. And my window was open in my bedroom. My bedroom faced the front of the house. And I heard my mom and my brother talking. And I looked out and they were at my car. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember something like a gun, either hearing it or maybe seeing the bag. I can't remember. But I remember coming down the stairs. But by the time I got down the stairs, my brother had taken the gun and hid it somewhere. My mom was screaming, like hysterically, freaking out that there was this gun in my trunk. And so it's got very, very hectic, to say the least. After that, my mom and my brother didn't want to give the gun to me. There was like a lot that kind of went down there, but eventually I did end up getting it back. I left the house with it. I took it somewhere else to somebody else, not to my ex-boyfriend, but to somebody else. And then I came back because as soon as I left the house, I knew, well, I didn't know, but I thought my mom will probably call the police. And I can't get far here, right? Like, if they arrest me with this gun, my life is going to be over, right? And it happened so quickly.
Did you know that it was in your trunk before your mom and your brother found it?
No, I didn't know it was in my trunk before my mom and my brother found it.
Did you know that he had a gun at that point?
Like, I did know. I definitely knew he had a gun. Yeah, I definitely knew he had a gun.
Had you seen it around the house?
I had seen it in the very beginning when we first started dating again, but it wasn't something like when he was staying with me and stuff. It wasn't something that was at my house or anything along those lines. Okay.
Right? And was he borrowing your car? Like, how did he?
Yeah, he's borrowing my car. He's using my car. So even that night that I hadn't come home, I had stayed at his mom's house, and he would take my car and he would go out all night and be gone with my car doing who knows what, and then come back. Right.
Okay.
So he was driving my car all the time. And that's also why my mom wasn't happy, was because she knew he didn't have a driver's license and he's driving my car around, right? So she's like, well, what are you going to do when something happens? Right? Like, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble here. And I think I was just very, delusional, like, oh, no, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine, right? Like, he's been driving since we were teenagers with no license, and he's never been in a car accident before, you know? I take the gun. I take it to someone I know. I asked them to hold on to it. I left it there, and I came back to my mom's house expecting to see a whole bunch of police, but there wasn't. There was nobody. So I thought that was really strange, not even my mom. But then I thought, okay, maybe she went to the police station to drive there and tell them. I don't know. So I just keep packing up my stuff as planned and, going about my business. My mom ends up coming back in the house. There's a whole interaction that happens, and I'm trying to leave. She's trying to keep me there because she thought that I had her watch. My mom has a watch that's worth a good amount of money that it's very sentimental to her as well, that she's had, ever since I was born. She thought I had her watch. So she's trying to get me to stop so she can search my bag, but I'm not having any of that, and I'm trying to leave.
Did you have the watch?
No, I didn't have the watch. Okay. And so she calls me, or she calls 911 while we're scuffling, I guess you could call it. And even the 911 lady's like, let go of her. You need to just let go of her. I'm sending officers there. Yeah, but you need to let go of her, because I'm yelling to the lady. She won't let go of me. And I have scratches on my arm, like not big scratches, just little scratches and whatnot. We're scuffling over the purse. So she lets go of the purse. I leave. I drive straight to the police station because I know she's already called and I wasn't going to stick around there for more to happen. So I just left. I drove to the police station and I walked myself in. And then they told me, go out to your car and wait in the car because the officers have gone out to your house. They'll talk to your mom first and then they'll come back and we'll come to your car and get you and we'll speak to you. So I said, okay, no problem. I called, I think like 4 people. I called my ex-boyfriend at the time, a friend of mine, and the person who had the gun.
So let's take this back. You're sitting in the parking lot at this police station. You know, you've had this like dispute with your mom, that your mom's called the police. There's this potentially missing watch, which you know you don't have, but your mom thinks you've stolen for drug money, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And there's this gun that your mom and your brother found in the trunk that you've now dropped off at a friend's house.
Yes.
But the police find.
So, yes, they don't find it at first. So, at first they come back. They come to my car. They bring me in for questioning.
Right.
I knew that they probably going to arrest me, but I thought they were going to let me go on a promise to appear. Like, I'm a paralegal. I have my own business.
You have no criminal record.
No criminal record. And
it's like a family dispute. Like, at the end of the day, dispute, right? We're talking like there was no weapons pulled. Your mom wasn't injured.
No. So, okay. So, I did bite my mom. Okay. I ended up biting my mom in the arm for her to let go of me.
Okay.
But it wasn't
so we're talking like a simple assault.
Yeah, we're not talking about like I didn't like rip her flesh off.
You're right.
Like, you know, nothing like that. I just bit her so she would let go. She let go. So I knew I was going to get charged with assault. I knew like right away, okay, I'm going to get charged with assault. And they take me in. They question me about it. Then they send me downstairs. And then it's like a long time. And I kind of know the system a little bit. So I'm like, what is happening up there? Like something's going on.
And are you in a holding cell?
Yes. I'm in a holding cell at the police station.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, this is strange. So it's probably like 11 hours before they pull me back up there. And then they bring me in the room and then they start asking me, okay, so where's the gun? And I'm like, what gun? I don't know what you're talking about. Well, your mom said you had a gun. Well, my mom's just mad. I don't know why she would say that. And, you know, we're going back and forth. And I mean, we're there for hours, right?
And had you spoken to a lawyer?
I don't remember if I asked to speak to one and then you get on the phone with them and they tell you basically like keep your mouth shut and we'll see you tomorrow in court, right?
Right.
So
did you get that advice?
I don't remember.
Okay. So if you did, you ignored it or maybe you didn't get that advice and now you're speaking to the police.
Now I'm speaking to the police.
Okay.
In my mind, I'm not telling them anything, though. I just keep telling them, no, there's no gun. But, I mean, I am telling them something, and that affects me later, not with my case, but something else that ends up happening. But then Leora was the only person who saw this for what it was. The officer actually put to me, and I don't remember his exact words, but during that interrogation, he put it to me, and he said, like, you know who your boyfriend is, right? He said, if you don't tell us where the gun is, we're just going to send officers out everywhere and we're going to search his house and we're going to go to his children's mother's houses and we're going to search their house and we're going to search his cousin's house and we're going to search everybody's house. And what do you think they're going to do to you when you get out of jail?
Wow.
After you caused all this trouble for them and you had the police there and who knows what else we're going to find and who else we're going to arrest during these raids and whatnot. And he literally was threatening me
with
my abusive boyfriend to get me to tell him where the gun was. And of course I didn't. I stuck to my story that there was no gun, that my mom didn't like my boyfriend. I said she just wants you to go and search his house and cause all these problems because she doesn't like him, right? That's what I stuck to, and mind you, like I am terrified at this point because I know the legal system. So I know what having a gun carries. Right. I know the consequences of that.
And this is what year?
This is 2012.
Okay.
I also know the consequences of what could happen if I am honest and tell them the truth about the gun, where it is, and where it came from.
Right. Because at this point, there's still a mandatory minimum of 3 years for firearm possession. This is no joke.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter if you're just like the innocent bystander in the middle of it all.
Right.
Right? If you have the gun, you have the gun. And that's all that really matters. And so
so many people don't realize that. And it's like an interesting perspective from you as both like a legal system participant and an accused person in that moment, because the number of people that come through my office that are like, I don't own the gun, it's not mine. And it's like, but the law doesn't care about ownership. You know, possession is only knowledge and control. And most people don't realize that and will be like, well, it's not mine. And therefore, you know, I can't be
one of the other things that Leora was the only one to pick out was, like, my mom found the gun. She picked up the gun. She held the gun. It was in a bag, so no one actually physically touched the gun. Like, I've actually never held a firearm in my hand in my entire life, but I've sat in jail for one.
Wow.
So my mom held the bag.
Right.
She gave the bag to my brother. My brother held the bag. My brother went and he's concealed it, hid it somewhere else, right? Ended up giving it back to me. So this bag passed hands of everybody in my family, and the only person who got charged was me. And Leora said this in her submissions. She said, the only difference between my brother and my mom and me was that I was also getting abused by my boyfriend at the time, and they weren't.
Right.
So you're like, when you think about it in that perspective, it's like, well, how come I'm being charged and no one else is being charged here?
So did the police ever find the gun?
So they find the gun because what they do is they go through my phone and they go to everybody's. The 4 people that I called, they go to everybody's house, every single person's house with no warrant. No, sorry. They had a warrant for my ex-boyfriends, but I know my friend, they just knocked on her door and said, Kristen told us that she brought the gun here. Can we search your house? And of course, my friend was like, search it. She didn't bring anything here. What are you talking about? Well, the person who I did bring it to was like, oh, yeah, here, it's in my laundry basket. Do you want me to go get it for you?
Oh, my God.
So they took the gun. They didn't arrest him. They took the gun. They went back to the station, and then at some point, somebody says, you need to go arrest him too. And then they go back and they arrest him. And
whatever happened to him?
He gets charged. 11 months in, after he got arrested, he ends up doing a plea deal with them. He gives a statement against me, and he gets, I think, like a year probation or something along those lines.
How long did you stay in jail for before you made bail?
So the first time, I was in jail 2 separate times, because I got my bail pulled. So the first time I got arrested, I was there for just about a month, give or take a few days.
Okay.
I got bail. My aunt, so it's not my blood aunt, but my aunt by marriage, and she wasn't with my uncle anymore, but I still consider her my aunt. So
she bails you out?
She bails me out. She's actually justice of the peace at the time, not working. She was off on like sick leave, but she's a justice of the peace. She bails me out at the time. I don't know for sure because we've never really had the conversation, but she definitely wanted me to take a plea. She definitely didn't think that I would win my case. And I don't no hard feelings at all because a lot of people didn't think I would win my case. She pulls my bail and I end up going back to jail. I go back to jail, I think it's about 3 weeks again before I get bail.
Okay.
The second time.
And who bails you out the second time?
A colleague of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, a friend and a colleague.
And so by this point, like you come out of jail the second time, have you broken up with your boyfriend? Like, when you get charged with his gun, is that it for the relationship, or do you stick around?
So it is and it isn't. It definitely was, while I was on bail, it was definitely back and forth. I was still struggling with drugs at that point. I didn't get clean until 2016. I did the methadone program. So I finished the methadone program in 2016, and I've been clean from opiates since then.
It's amazing. Congratulations.
And thank you. And
how long does your case take?
My case took 3 years.
Wow.
So I got arrested in 2012, 2015. So it'll be 10 years this October.
I love that.
Or sorry, December, I think we got the
decision?
December 19th. It was right before Christmas. We got the decision. Yes. Wow. So it'll be 10 years. Yeah. And we were still back and forth, but it was it was just me trying to cope, because the thing is, while I was on bail, I was restricted from talking to any of my family. I had a no contact order with all of my family. The second person who bailed me out, they actually wouldn't let me live with them, even though it was a condition of my bail. So I was essentially homeless, and I was living in my car. I was staying at friends' houses. So I still definitely had contact with him through that period as well, because...
Were you still running your paralegal service?
Not while I was doing this. From
Okay.
2012 till 2017, I didn't go back. So even though I got clean and everything in 2016, like once I went through what I went through with the legal system, I wanted nothing to do with it. Like, I didn't think I would ever step foot in a courtroom again as a paralegal.
Really?
I did not want anything. It left such a bad taste in my mouth, because the prosecutor at my trial actually tried to put it, essentially tried to put it out there that, yes, I was in an abusive relationship, but I liked being in an abusive relationship. I stayed with this person. I went back to this person. I was in another abusive relationship after that one that the person was charged with, so they knew about it.
Right.
And yeah, she said, like, look at this. She's got like a pattern here. Like, okay, so what, basically? Who cares? And then the second guy who I was in an abusive relationship with, after I got acquitted, 3 months later, I have to be a witness at his trial. And now the prosecutor's like, oh, this poor abused woman, look at her. And I was so bitter.
Same office?
Same office, not same prosecutor, same office. I was so bitter. I was like, oh, but...
And these are both at appeal.
Yeah, both at appeal. I'm like, 3 months ago, though, I enjoyed it. 3 months ago, I was not to have any empathy or no pity for me whatsoever. But now you want to put me up there so you can get a win.
Right.
You know, as like this, you know, oh, poor woman. Like, oh, poor her. Well, it wasn't poor me 3 months ago.
Right, when you were trying to send me to jail for 3 years.
That left such a bad taste in my mouth. Plus, Leora was also going through her charges at that time.
Right.
So she got charged. And just seeing all of this, I was like, this is not what I want to be a part of. So it wasn't until 2017 that I really kind of cleared my mind, got back to, you know, my stable self, that I was like, no, I can't let them win. I worked so hard to get here. I went to put myself through school, paid off all those student loans. Like, I did everything, and I've worked so hard. I have my own business. I have these clients that depend on me. Like, I can't. So I was like, let's start over again. And I had to start all over again, because I do landlord and tenant. A lot of my clients were corporate clients. Right. I lost those clients to other people. So none of my charges ever interrupted my practice at all. I either had someone else to take over, or I spoke to my clients and told them, listen, you need to find somebody else. But it wasn't as if I just went MIA and didn't appear in court or whatnot. So that was a benefit. But yeah, I had to start from scratch in 2017, right from nothing, all over again. But you did build it back up. Yeah.
You did it. And you today have a very successful paralegal practice.
Yes.
Focused on landlord-tenant disputes still. So you've stayed true to your roots.
Yes.
And I mean, relationship-wise, healthy, happy?
Single. Very single.
So happy, healthy, single.
Yes. I have my son. His dad and I co-parent very well.
It's amazing.
We were very good friends before I got pregnant, so it definitely helped in that aspect. Yeah, just really trying to enjoy life now, right? I feel like now I can slow down and I can enjoy the time that I have, and I appreciate things a lot more now than what I had in the past, right? But yeah, one of the main reasons I wanted to come and speak with you is just so people can really see that, you know, you don't always have to, you know, come from a underprivileged area or something. Like, normal middle class people, any type of person can find themselves wrapped up in a situation that they don't know how to navigate and can end up a criminal, right? It doesn't define who they are as a person, though. It doesn't, like you said, criminal is just a word, right? It's just something that somebody did. It's not what defines them. And I wish that I had somebody when I was going through my issues to really show me that this isn't what you are. right? A lot
But
of
now you can be an example of that.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's the beauty of being able to be open and honest about, your history,
Mhm.
is that now there's someone out there who's struggling.
Mhm.
There's so many women out there who are in horribly abusive relationships, women who are addicted to drugs, women who find themselves in the criminal justice system, often on account of their partners. It happens time and time again, and a lot of them feel like there's nobody out there who gets out.
Mm. Yes.
I think for me, like when I was struggling in law school to find my place as someone who had, just overcome very, very serious addiction, I didn't think that there was any lawyers out there who had overcome addiction and who had been addicts and who had come off of like heavily, heavily entrenched in street life and drug culture.
Mhm.
And for me, I promised myself that if I could figure out how to be successful as a lawyer, I wanted to be that example to someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that for people who have different stories but similar struggles, in the sense of like I wasn't in abusive relationships, but nonetheless, like, you can be that example for other women that, like, despite being in that circumstance, you get to still pull your life together and create a beautiful, incredible life for yourself, which you've done.
Yes.
And I love that.
Yes. And
That's
thank you
amazing.
so much to Leora, because like I said earlier, if it wasn't for her, I would definitely not be sitting here today. It always just takes one person to really believe in you, to really support you, and to really care about you. And she did that when nobody else did. And lawyers like that, like you, like her, they make a huge difference out here to people, because people don't realize how much these types of situations and going through the whole system, it can really affect you.
She did believe in you. That's how I know you, right?
Yeah.
Like, I knew who you were
Mhm.
by your case, because Leora and I often, will talk. I mean, we talk probably
I
every
think
day.
you were even at the courthouse on my jury selection day, because it
Okay.
wasn't until later when I saw you the first time and I'm like, oh, I recognize her. I think she was with Leora on the day.
Yeah, we'll pop in and see each other and check. And so
Yeah.
I knew of your case, and I knew what your case meant to her,
Mhm.
because from time to time we really do get cases that, like, it's about the person. It's
Yeah.
not about the case. It's about truly believing that justice needs to be served.
Mhm.
And especially if you had come from her after 3 other lawyers, like everyone was trying to sell you out.
Yeah.
It's really the bane of our existence when we hear those things. And for me as well, right? Because
Mhm.
nobody gave me options when I was going through the legal system as a youth. And
Mhm.
so for me, that's so paramount, in defending anybody.
Yeah.
But no, you always will hold a special place in her heart for amazing reasons. And I truly hope that anyone out there who's struggling to find their way, especially through, abusive relationships, through addiction, and not believing that there's anything for them on the other side, you're a testament to the fact that that really is not true, and you can pull yourself out of any of those circumstances and be successful.
Yes, for sure. And if
thank
there's
you so
anybody
much.
listening who needs any type of assistance, can always reach out to me. I'm
How do they find
always
you?
there. So I have Instagram.
Tell
It's at 297 Chrissy 905.
Okay.
Or I'm on LinkedIn as well, Kristen Markoff. That's probably the best way to get me.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to plug that.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you so much for
Thank
your time.
you.
It's
Thank
awesome.
you. It's
Thank
great
you so
to
much.
be here.
Another episode of Who Judges the Judge.